Can you hear me? So some of the kids came to a very hopeless conclusion today. They decided that the Vikings were lost and they just gave up. So we're here mourning their end of their chance at any playoffs ever in the future, right? Go Packers! Woo! All right, stop it. I got a little game while you're chewing and while you're waiting in line. We want to thank you guys for coming. Again, my name's Patrick. We're at the Heroes Gate training for volunteers in case you're lost. We're looking for free food. Just pretend you were in this. But we have a little game. It's an extension of last year. It's called Would You Rather. So I'm going to give you two options. You have to pick one of the two. If you like the first option, you don't do anything. If you like the second option, you raise a hand. If you're not sure about your deodorant, then you're always going to go with the first option, right? So you have to pick. And then once, I'll give you a few seconds. You guys can talk about it. If it's really a debate there, I'll just interrupt you and go on to the next one, okay? So for example, if you like the Vikings, would you rather be cheering for the Vikings or would you rather be cheering for the Packers? All of you would raise your hand, right? What? All right. All right, the first one. Would you rather ride a roller coaster? So you keep your hand down if that's your option. Or would you rather ride a mechanical bull? That's your other option. So hands up for mechanical bull, hands down for roller coaster. You want broken bones or a sick stomach? That's your options, right? All right, the next one is much easier. Would you rather own a cabin in the mountains or have a cabin by the beach? It's not hard yet, right? Now the next one is a little harder. Would you rather be trapped in an elevator or stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic? Equal amount of time. Wow, that was good. We have a lot of people on the same page. Would you rather see someone's hair on your plate or a cockroach on the table? There were no cockroaches harmed in this. Would you rather laugh really hard one day a week or laugh a little bit every day? Really hard one day a week or a little bit every day? That one wasn't much debate. How about this one? Would you rather faint during your wedding ceremony and recover an hour later, or throw up during the wedding ceremony and continue right away?
Throw up.
You got to pick one.
You'd rather faint?
Either way, you're embarrassed, right?
Neither. Kelly would rather.
Yeah,
you'd rather faint than throw up? Why?
I have a phobia.
You do?
I'd really be, that's really a sign of love if you still get kissed at the end.
I hope that's not a Vikings.
Would you rather clean out a garage or assemble a playground?
I made an announcement at the beginning of everything.
Well, we're kind of split on that one. Would you rather get a shot from a doctor or a filling from a dentist? Who's got the phobia? It's kind of a hard one because there's usually a needle involved in both. Right? Would you rather know you only have 1 year to live or die unexpectedly? Happy thoughts. I think that one's a good discussion one. I'll give you 1 minute to talk about why. Discuss it to table. Why would you rather die now or later? All right, we're moving on. Would you rather go a week without brushing your teeth or without taking a shower?
Without taking a shower.
What would your spouse rather you have done? Would you This one is going to be challenging. Would you rather believe you're right and stand your ground and have someone say, I hate you? Or would you rather believe you're right and compromise? So would you rather believe you're right and stand your ground and someone say, I hate you? Or would you rather not stand your ground and compromise? Are you afraid of conflict or are you not? I suppose it depends who it is, right? If it's your spouse, it's all about, yep, you're right. Yeah, she's compromising already. Would you rather be able to eat what you want without gaining weight or have a wonderful talent? Would you rather eat what you want without gaining weight or have a wonderful talent? Besides the wonderful talent you already have. Would you rather avoid a challenge or seek it out? Would you rather avoid a challenge or seek it out? Was that pretty clear cut for people or is that one hard? Kind of iffy? Would you rather spend more time with your family or more time with your friends? Assuming that you're spending time with your family already. Alright, we'll move on. Would you rather be trapped in an elevator with Barney or with Forrest Gump? I love you, you love me. Would you rather change the past or be able to see into the future? Would you rather be able to change the past or see into the future? Wow, that's interesting. It seems like more people would go with the first one. Why don't we talk about that one for a minute, in between bites? You could go back in time and have Favre not throw that interception in the playoffs. All right, moving on. Let's see. We'll make it an easy one. Would you rather have a wedgie or wet armpits? Everybody's familiar with a wedgie, right? Yeah, wet. Would you rather eat the same meal for a year, or not be able to use your smartphone for a year? Wow, I thought that'd be a little more tough to decide. All right. Would you rather have no internet or no cell phone? Your cell phone would not have internet, you said that. Would you rather make one new law of your choice or get rid of one law of your choice? So either make a new law of your choice or get rid of a law of your choice. That's a good table discussion. Like, you got 1 minute.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Well, the one nice thing about being able to change the law is you can get rid of Roe versus Wade, right? Change abortion and get rid of it. Let's see, another one. This one might be a big challenge for you. Would you rather go 30 days without refined sugar or 90 days without caffeine? 30 days without refined sugar, so that eliminates a lot of things, or 90 days without caffeine. You can get rid of both. That's fine. Would you rather be too busy or too bored? Too busy or too bored? It's a state of mind. Huh? Would you rather be locked in an amusement park or a library? Would you rather be locked in an amusement park or a library? Would you rather hear the good news first or the bad news first? The bad news first, huh? Would you rather never be able to say thank you or never be able to say please? I like it when I make you think. Oh, that's good. So a lot of people would rather say thank you and not please. I'm waiting to hear it. No, I'm just kidding. All right, would you rather spend a night in a luxury hotel or go camping? Assuming you don't have to pay for either. Nice. Would you rather have more time or more money? Would you rather have more time or more money? All right, we're going to end on a high note. Would you rather be invisible or have the ability to fly? All right. Well, thanks for playing along. If you need to get any more food, feel free to. We are about to start. We have a guest speaker. Well, you guys probably have heard him speak already. Seth McCoy is going to share. He's going to give us a real insight into the vision and kind of the direction of church and Sundays in particular and how we are a big part of that. So thanks for coming, you guys. We really appreciate it. You got it. Seth probably takes 1 minute here, so if you want to get more food or drink, jump up and do it now.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you need to get anything else, you should do that because we're going to get started in like 2 minutes. Who would rather be stuck in an elevator? I just need to know who's crazy. Who's crazy person? Is in traffic? Yeah. Right. Can't stand it no more, right?
Hey, how you doing, man?
All right,
I think
friends.
that's what we've had lots of jokes. I didn't know what that was.
Can I know your name already?
But it's good.
Yes.
Oh, whatever.
Okay, everyone have a packet and a pen and paper, something to write with. If you don't have a packet, I think some of them are making their way around the room. Hold your hand up if you don't have a packet. That's going to be a pretty important part. Do we have that anymore?
I'm working on it.
Oh, great. Okay. Also, there's going to be 2 separate times during this training where you're going to want to see this screen. So if you're positioned in a chair where you can't see it, I think most everybody is probably good, but you might just want to readjust your chairs. Also, now I cut my teeth as a youth pastor, so I'm a pro at making people talk together that don't want to talk together. That's totally going to happen today. Okay? So just I need all the introverts right now. Just mentally prepare yourself. You're going to be sharing, and things are going to be okay. I totally promise. So there's going to be some time that we're sharing. I do have a couple of videos that hopefully should be like kind of idea starters to talk about. And then I did, so I used to be the youth and young adult pastor here, and then I went away for a little while, and so I'm back now, and my main responsibility, besides giving Greg a break from teaching sometimes, mostly so he doesn't injure himself further, my main role and responsibility is looking at the different components of the weekend services and trying to pull them together, and also to help kind of cast a vision for the future of our weekend services. My very first Sunday, Greg got up in front of everybody and said, "We've been doing our worship service kind of the same way since it started 24 years ago, and Seth's going to change all that." So then I was under a lot of pressure, so I just moved everybody's chairs, right? That was like my first thing. However, I do want you to know as we work through this packet today, the team that's working on this, and it's a pretty large team that gets together every week and asks questions about how's our weekend service going. We're not moving things around simply to move things around. You know, there are some places and some people who think that change for its own sake is a good idea. I do feel that way about furniture in my living room. I will move that around just to move it around. But when you're messing around with like people's worship experience, it's not a good idea just to move it, simply to move it. However, we do have an end in mind for what we're working on the weekend services, and so I want to share a little bit about that. I also recognize that you guys have listened to a half-hour sermon and also worked a shift with our kiddos probably this weekend, and so I don't want to stretch this any longer than it needs to be. I'm going to try to be cognizant of time, and I might even cut some things off to keep us moving through that. I hope that doesn't feel rude. I'm trying to do that on your behalf, and also because we all know what's happening while we're doing this. And we need to keep that in mind in the back of our heads, okay? I just want to read a couple paragraphs. The first place that I used this packet was with the staff that works together to put together the weekend services. That being like the worship ministry and the connecting ministry. I just tried to write kind of a short overview of kind of how the weekend service fits in with our church. And so these are just a couple of paragraphs that I wrote out. We're going to start with this, and then I have a video. I'm going to give you some instructions about that. Creating a worship gathering can be complicated. We know that getting people to experience and participate in a meaningful worship gathering, it's not an end. I went to churches where it was an end. Like the whole goal is just get people coming back next Sunday to come to the service. Church attendance is not the goal of Woodland Hills, and it's not the goal of our weekend service. It's not an end. We hope it's the beginning of something new and more faithful. For most every person who's a Christian, me included, I'm guessing it will hold true for this group too. For most every person who is a Christian, our lives have been touched and shaped by church gatherings. Sermons and worship songs and visual art and interactions with people before, during, and after church gatherings have been key moments for most of us. Hold your hand up if that's true, if your life has been impacted by worship services at churches. Yeah. So we know that we create moments. Now, not every weekend is a key moment for every person, but we do hope for people to sense, to experience, and to engage with the living God through their participation in our gatherings regularly. That's why we work to bring our effort and gifts to that goal. I do totally have the expectation that not only are this hope that we have of bringing people to have an encounter with the good Father, that we sang about today, that's not just for adults, that's for kids. Kids can experience and sense God's presence. And in fact, for me, when I went through a bit of a faith crisis, one of the things that I couldn't shake was how much I remember experiencing God as a child in church and as a youth, that even if I wanted to say God didn't exist, I couldn't rationally do it because God met me in church, in Sunday school and in church services. So it's not our expectation that what you guys are doing is babysitting the kids while adults encounter a Jesus-looking God. It's our hope that all of us, regardless of how old we are on the weekends, we are all encountering the living God together on the weekends. We're just doing it in different parts of the building. Amen? Yeah. Okay. Now I have a short video that I'm going to show you, and I just want to prep you. If you're maybe turned away from the screen, you might want to reposition yourself. We're going to watch this video 3 times, okay? But it's a really short video, so it's going to go really fast. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to do each time. I'm just going to tell you what you're going to do right before you do it, because I know that adults are not very different than children. If I give you instructions for 3 different ways, you're going to forget the way, right? So we're just going to take one step at a time. So we're going to watch this video once, and the first thing I want you to do is just to watch it, okay? I don't want you to write anything down. I don't want you to take any notes. I just want you to take it in. Make sense? Then I'm going to give you some instructions for the second time. I haven't tested this, so if there's technical difficulties, just be patient with me. I'm a pastor, okay? Now you're going to watch this second time. I want you to take out your pen. And actually, there's a piece of paper in your notes that has the first screenshot. It says the power of intention times 3. On the top half of that, I want you to write down no more than 5 words that stand out to you. Okay? So you're gonna have to choose. No more than 5. If only one of them, that's fine. If none of them, that's fine too. And you are gonna share this briefly in groups just to prepare you. Okay? So the second time, you're gonna scratch down no more than 5 words that stand out to you as important. Make sense? Just one more time. One of the lines in this video says that they start with how they want people to feel. I'd love for you to pick no more than 2 words. We're gonna watch the video again. I want you to describe how the video makes you feel. For some of you, that'll be real easy. You already know what that is. For some of you, you might have to work a little harder. What's something that you feel when you watch this video? Okay? Make sense? All right. One more time. Right, from California, of course. Okay,
I'd love for you to turn around in groups. I'd love for each person to share 2 words that stood out. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then I'll give you a break, and then you're going to go around the circle again and share 1 word that you wrote down about how the video made you feel and a little bit about why. Okay? The oldest person in the group is going to start, just to make it real easy. Okay? All right, 1, 2, 3, go. That's me.
Maybe it's because I need to focus and be intentional. You could maybe. Okay. But didn't take yeah.
I'm not sure this is a fit, so I put question marks around it. I don't know work, but what I really like is when it's hard to say the name and it's more for
keep trying. Find your Butting, no, I'm butting in. It's probably not what it's supposed to be. Really? Yeah, the first time I watched it.
because we were expecting something different, expecting sort of
Yeah,
I was trying to connect this more like
the church, I know, but I had the, I don't know, it just all happened. So But we saw that they were I got her
Unwanted responsibility.
No, but I don't know why. I just knew
I'm coming. I'm kidding.
No, I was about to say one more
that's how I think their time I probably.
And then you can have it in Spanish.
Yeah.
See, now we know we can do Tan Hansen for you.
Keep tweaking.
Oh, this is the first time you watch the video.
A lot of others have.
Okay, did everyone get to go yet? Raise your hand if your table needs a little more time. No. Okay, let's move to the second question. Everyone sharing one word. How did the video make you feel? Did you guys already do that? Everyone already did that? Which groups didn't do it? Which groups actually followed instructions? Yes, excellent work. All right. We will give you guys, why don't we give you guys like 3 minutes to go around the table and share the one word. And then I want to hear from the youngest person at each table. I'd love to hear from you one word that, or something that seemed like maybe it was a theme, maybe one word popped to people more than one time. So you can be thinking about that, youngest person. A lot of responsibility. The whole table's depending on you to make you look good. All right, 3 minutes.
I got intense so share.
capture the room's attention. That would be great. Okay, we're going to start with the table that's closest to the orange igloos back there. Youngest person around that table in the back, we'd love to hear from you a word that stood out to you or your group. Did you guys? Yeah, you can pick anything. It's wide open. You're in control. Had a good positive what? Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. We're going to go next, right here, back center of the room. That wasn't hard to figure out there, was it? We're not a big fan of that sweatshirt. You know that, though, young man, right? I love the spirit of Woodland Hills right there. Rebel. All right, what did you guys have for your table?
The video was it was peaceful and calm.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
open.
That's great. Thank you. Those are great words. Peaceful, calm, open. How about this table with some Vikings gear? Get us back on track.
So I think hopeful was a word that came up a couple of times, but then I think there's also an urgency to it, which creates some anxiety and some mixed emotions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's insightful. Okay, we're going to just keep going to the right, and then we're going to come to the back.
So our table kind of had mixed emotions about the message, I guess, the video.
Yeah. Great. Mixed between what? Can you give us an illustration of?
There was a little bit of confusion, some inspiration, and I think the third one was unwanted responsibility, but we didn't go in depth to why that was.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. That's great. Okay, let's go to the back three. What do you guys got?
I'm the baby, I guess.
All right. Our word was intention, and it made us feel challenged.
Excellent. Okay, we're gonna come all the way to the left over here.
Peaceful with our
Yeah.
We had to split two different themes that I'll concede that both I went with peaceful since
Okay. That's a take charge guy right there. Okay, let's keep the good feelings going with let's go right here. Yeah. Okay.
We went with inspiring.
Yeah.
There was a lot of feelings of creativity and challenge, but I think the main thing was mostly inspiring.
Inspiring. That's great. Thank you. We'll go right here.
We also had inspired.
Mm-hmm. Good word. Was there any infighting, conflict at this table? Sense of a unity of the spirit they got here. So, all right, let's let's go right here. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Let's see. We got one more right here in the front.
Yeah, we went with failing too,
Yeah.
but I was telling them that you have to be real with people to share the gospel with people. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds like you got a sermon in you. We'll talk later about that. All right. I mean, all these words are great words that come up. I mean, there's nothing magical about a computer company, except they do have an uncanny ability to touch people with like a felt need, like what it is that people want. And one of the things that strikes me about the video, there's a couple phrases there that are both maddening and inspiring to me. Like 1,000 no's for every yes. It's like, that's a super challenging one. Like, really is true. If you want to do something really well, there's lots of other things that you have to say no to. Like one of the most masterful teachers in the world said, like, if you seek first the kingdom of God, if that one is first, there's gonna have to be a bunch of other things that you say no to. So only part about the video that's good is wherever it lines up with Jesus, then it's like right on line, right? When I watch the video, also I feel challenged and inspired. It makes me want to create something amazing. And of all the organizations that I could, for the gifts that God's given me, of all the things that I could do, all the different organizations I could work for to create something, I feel compelled to do that for the church. And I feel compelled not just to do that for any church, but to do that at Woodland Hills, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. The video inspires me, but more than that, our church inspires me. And I wanted to share with you like 4 kind of the driving visions that we have around the weekend service. Just to give you, like, it's not going to be 1,000, it's not going to be like 1 yes for the weekend service. There's like 4 things that I would love for our church to say yes to on the weekends, which means we might have to say no to thousands of other things, but these 4 things I feel pretty compelled, like, we can't say no to these 4 things, okay? So you can turn the page over. The first one of those is authentic human warmth. And in our culture, we have sort of like a mixed experience. Like for instance, if I go to Target, which I go to fairly often, my preferred mode of checking out is actually the self-service line. I actually don't like getting in line and having much of an interaction. Like there's a part of convenience and simplicity that if I don't have to be bothered by someone, there's times when I actually don't really want to be bothered by someone, and the worst place to go in the world is Wells Fargo on Grand Avenue. That is the worst experience. Like somebody who I don't want to have an interaction with, like wants to ask me if I had plans for the weekend, and I go like, we don't have that kind of relationship. I just please need you to deposit this check. However, so that's one side. However, I also have a deep need to connect with people. On one hand, I don't want to be bothered by some relationships, and yet on the other hand, I really need to be known. I really need to be loved. I want to be well cared for. And so we have both of those experiences when someone walks into our church, probably especially for the first time or the first couple times. There's like a fine line that we walk as a church between being, we don't want to be Wells Fargo, and churches can totally do that. Put hundreds of dollars into greeters at every possible station with cheerful faces, and to a certain point, there's going to be a percentage of the population that's like, I'm just coming to church. I don't want to be accosted. However, no one wants to feel like there's no room for them here. And like finding an authentic way to be warm with human beings is part of what the church has always been called to. It's like this real ancient word that the church has had that restaurants have stolen, called the ancient art of hospitality. Good hospitality means that we communicate both verbally and non-verbally. There's room for you here. There's space for you here. One of the things I wrote underneath this, and if you want to underline or highlight things, you can. We welcome people with genuine human warmth in the same way that the Father would. This is always a good thing for us to remember. How would the Father welcome someone on a weekend service? If you're in your kid's classroom and a kindergartner walks in the classroom, it's totally partly your responsibility to say, how would the Father welcome this child into the classroom? And I want to embody that same kind of warmth. That like, not only are we excited to see the adults, when the kiddos show up, we communicate like there's room for you here in this classroom. And that we're encouraging and challenging the insiders. Like that's been one of the strong things I've been nudging here, because lots of people have been coming here for a lot of time. Is like, as soon as you're an insider around Woodland, instead of using that status to like make your own experience comfortable, I think that one of the things that Jesus would really press us on is to say, take your status as an insider and leverage that to make somebody that's on the outside feel like they're on the inside. And not only are we asking adults to do that, because that's challenging, right? I mean, we'd asked a few times on Sunday mornings, like, hey, if there's someone sitting next to you by themselves, you should scoot over. Do you know how hard that is to get an adult to scoot over one chair? I'm certain the kids will do better than that. But encouraging the kids in our classrooms, like, there's some of your kiddos that are regulars, and they understand social dynamics too. A kid will absolutely pick up on the fact if they're in a classroom and they can tell that the other kids don't want to play with them. And like that could maybe happen lots of different places. There's one place that it should never happen, right? It's in the body of Christ. And that's a commitment that we make, not just as adults, but we commit to like, we're going to practice hospitality. We're going to teach these kiddos. Like, no kid is too young to practice good hospitality. So that's the first one, authentic human warmth. The second one is we spend a lot of time and energy creating experiences. What I mean by that is like there's hundreds of different ways to do church, right? Like before I was working here, before I was the pastor here, I was a pastor of a little church with about 40 or 50 people. I just want you to know our worship service was vastly different than what we just had this last weekend, right? Like 50 people in an old Presbyterian church on a Sunday evening with really great coffee every week. It's a different experience. I have friends of mine who love going to very liturgical worship services. I have other friends who love going to Catholic ones. I have some that are like crazy Pentecostals, and they go to worship services that I'm like, wow, there's a lot of energy in this room. Like one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to put different components together into a worship service. What I would call that is crafting. You know, like when you're trying to build something, like for the kiddos. Like you guys have a time that the kids go to the story fort, right? You have other times where the kids are in your classrooms. You have like snack time. Like each one of those components is an experience. When the kids walk down the hallway for the first time and get greeted by the teacher, or at the check-in counters, like each one of those experiences gets added together into like what was this experience like for the kids and for the parents, for the adults that are coming. And it is significantly our responsibility, like as a church and as a team, to be thoughtful from start to finish about what is it like for people when they come to our worship service. Now in our worship service, we're trying to put together lots of different genres. Like we have music. You know, I don't know if you guys know this. Every week we have a tech director. Did you guys know that? There's like one person whose job it is to tell the camera people what to do. If you ever want to find like there's a really hard job here on the weekends. There's one person who sits up there and looks at all the cameras and decides. It can feel a little bit like a TV show, right? But we got screens and we got people that want to see Greg's face when he is trying to spin one eyeball counterclockwise. Did you guys catch that today? That happened today. It didn't actually happen. He said he saw it. Let me clarify that. But like all of us are working together as a team across a very large and complex church on the weekends, where part of the vision is like each one of those components is a small part of the body that needs each one of the others. One of the first places I learned about teamwork here, because I'm responsible for making sure that our worship service happens on schedule. You all know where this is going, right? One of the things I learned is that if our worship service goes over, that causes pain and sadness, weeping and gnashing of teeth down on the north end of the classroom, right? Now, I just want you guys to know one of the core values of this church is grace and mercy, okay? Do you have any idea how hard it is to edit a sermon by Greg Boyd and say, Greg, we need 5 minutes off of that sermon, right? So you're going to have a little grace for me. I'm working on it. I had no idea today that he was going to put on a red cape at the 11. Who was at the 11 o'clock service? Total surprise. That didn't happen Saturday, nor at 9 o'clock a.m. So it's the cost of working with a genius, right? But each one of our components works together to create a weekend experience that, just so you know, I have a friend of mine who's on the fence about faith, and I invited him to come to a worship service. And I don't know when the last time you invited someone who's not a Christian to come to a worship service or to the weekend. As soon as you do that, your antenna will be up for all kinds of things that you never noticed before, because you're going to be thinking about, oh, what's going on in his head when he saw that happen over there, you know? And I don't want to put a lot of pressure on, especially not undue pressure or responsibility. Like, God is supreme and in charge of all things, and yet gives us significant responsibility. Someone comes to our church, if they feel like they're not welcome here, you know how hard it is to get them to come back for a second time? That is really hard. It's in our best interest to do the best job we can on the weekends to say, like, how can we be the best hosts that we can be? And that has some limitations, right? One of the haunting words on that video for me is they use this word called perfect as a verb, right? We will never have perfect worship services. We can always keep growing and getting better. God doesn't require perfection from us, but I think that God does ask us to give our very best for the work that we're doing. And I think one of the main reasons why is because God never gave us any less than his very best. And I think that he asked the same thing from us. I think the people who are here on the weekends deserve it, and I know the kiddos in our classroom deserve it. Okay, third one. I for sure want people to feel welcomed here, However, I think one of the very unique things about Woodland Hills that has drawn many of us here is that even though Jesus was very welcoming, he also said really hard things that made people leave. So we're not trying to just welcome people and make them feel at ease or build a large customer base on the weekend. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to invite people to hear the challenging but life-giving message of the kingdom that Jesus proclaimed. And at times, that will actually mean that people will leave our church because the message is too challenging. My only thing is, I just want to make sure that if people leave the church, it's over something meaningful, not over something dumb. Like, if people leave the church because they go, I can't believe that Jesus challenged us to love our enemies, I'd go like, yep, this might not be the church for you. That's totally okay. If somebody leaves because they're like, you know what, no one even said hi to me, and I came for like 4 times, and not once did someone even smile at me, I go, that's a dumb reason. We can fix that one. I can't fix the one about loving your enemies. We're not going to edit the Bible here. We should fix the things that we can fix, and we should be confident in preaching the challenging message of the kingdom that Jesus taught. It's the reason, for me, it's one of the reasons why I'm here. And then the last one, so we want the weekend services to exhibit human warmth. We want to put together an experience that where God's presence and people can meet face to face. The third one is we want to challenge people with a radical message of the kingdom. And then the fourth one is so this church has been around for 24 years, right? The founding story of this church was Greg and a few other people looked at the Twin Cities, and they had been going to a church called Open Door, which is over on the west side of the city. And there was a vibrant church, and they said, man, we love this church. There's like strong biblical teaching, and there's great worship, and what you find in the people that are at Open Doors, there's a real passion and commitment to what they're doing. And they looked on this side of the river, and not with any judgment, but just said, we don't see that same kind of thing. Strong biblical kingdom teaching and really strong worship and a group that's passionate. And they said, let's start it, you know? That's like the founding story of Woodland Hills, is that there'd be a church in St. Paul that where worship is passionate, where there's a strong level of commitment to the message and the challenging teaching of Jesus, and where a group of people share that same passion to like spread and grow that message and then to invite other people into it. And I think that matters. I think the theology that gets created here as a church, this, I mean, like Greg says, 20,000 people will podcast this sermon this week. That's a pretty incredible influence that we have. This theology, and I feel like this calling, they deserve to be embodied by a church that takes its calling really serious, and that we match that same passion and commitment. And that's part of what I'm hoping that we see on the weekend. Okay? Now, if you turn the page over, these are a couple documents. It's our calling as a church and our values as a church. Some organizations call it like a vision and value statement. And what I'd love to do, since I've been talking for a little while, is to give you guys a chance. For your introverts, you're going to get a few minutes on your own. With your pen, I would love for you to, on the calling statement, I'd like for you to read through that. I'd like for you to underline or circle words that are compelling to you. When you look at this, you should see a couple things that you say, this is why I go to Woodland Hills and not to some other church. I'd love for you to put a star next to two of those calling statements that you go, this is part of the reason why I choose this church. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to read through it and do that, and then I am going to ask that you share together around the table. And here's one of the reasons why I'm going to ask you to do that. You guys are all on one team for Heroes Gate, even though you might not serve in the same area, right? And one things that great teams do is great teams have a strong sense of camaraderie. You know, like one of the reasons why the Vikings have been as successful this year as they've been, there wasn't any significant change of players. There was a great coach that came in, and he's instilled a sense of camaraderie in those players that like want to play together. That totally matters. So one of the reasons why I have you share around tables isn't just to fill time or so that you don't have to listen to me talk. It's because like any great team of people that work together need to build a good sense of community and camaraderie. And even though it won't be a giant way that we do that today, it is a way. Like you're going to find out from someone across the table who you might not know very well, you're going to find out 1 or 2 of the strong reasons why they choose this church. And that kind of sharing and growing together helps build some of that camaraderie just a little bit at a time. So I'm going to ask you to read through that and then get prepared to build a little bit of community and camaraderie by sharing the thing for you that stands out, and then also by listening well to the other people as they share around the table. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to read it on your own, and then I'm going to give you like an official start to when group sharing time will begin. And then the person who lives closest to this building is going to start the sharing time. So that'll be another fun thing we're going to find out, okay? All right, so first 5 minutes on your own, reading through the calling statements, putting a mark next to 2 of them that are compelling to you. Okay, just a quick check-in. Just hold your hand up if you could use more time. Okay, just a couple. All right, I'm going to go 30 more seconds. If your whole table is done, you can start figuring out who lives closest.
Just autistic. Sure. Oh, that could have been.
I thought it was
trying to get out of my
But he's not ready to. After the first wow, this is awesome. Even to this day, there's some weeks where I'm kind of like, I don't really feel like response that I'm not church. You know, I just short you so not make it's something like what you guys do. Somewhere else.
But not like
Okay, when your group is done sharing, you can turn over. We're going to do the same activity with the values. So you can read through it, choose two of them, and then share together as a group, okay?
I was ready. What do you say?
If you haven't wrapped up your first sharing time, you should be getting towards that and getting prepped to read over the values.
So I just absolutely love that. That's the way I try to live my life. It's just being friends with people all the time. And not just friends, becoming friends. Abilities are always up there. And it helps me be an advocate too, because I have a blind friend. They used to have.
Also, when everyone around your group is done reading through, you can begin discussing on your own. Okay? This one we should move a little quicker. You guys are doing good. You could do better. Okay? Okay, you guys are gonna hate me. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
No, I don't. Yeah. Humility, yeah.
He drives a okay car. All the
He's just way more fun. I'm like boring.
Okay, just hold your hand up if you haven't gotten to share yet. Hold your hand up if you have not. Okay, I'm going to cut in here. You guys are doing great. Good community building right there, friends. We have, I'm committed, I'd like to get done about 5 minutes early and get you guys out of here, so we have about 15 more minutes of focused time. Does everyone have 15 minutes in them? Yes. What are you going to say, right? No, we're out of here. Okay. If you want to turn over the page, I'm going to be working on this little donut diagram. But before I show you that donut diagram, I'm going to show you another real brief one. I don't know, will everyone be able to see that whiteboard if I draw something on it? Okay. And will everyone be able to hear me if I'm not in the microphone? Talk louder? Okay. Actually, I'll start right here. One of the things that everyone who I talk to who loves Woodland Hills Church, one of the words that almost everyone uses about Woodland Hills is that this church is visionary. And the main reason why we're visionary is because we have a visionary leader in Greg Boyd, right? He sees things that most people just can't. You know, I mean, I fancy myself an okay Bible teacher. He sees things in the scripture that I never would even imagine in there. You know, he's got a battery that runs at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and he's got drive. He has a passion for the kingdom that is contagious when you get around him. It's like what's brought people here, right? I think the most basic, clear definition of a vision, because there's like 1 billion of them out there, is just like a picture of the future that produces passion and commitment from people. It's what Woodland Hills has been doing from the very beginning. Like Greg having a vision for the future of people's lives, a vision for the kingdom, and trying to use his personal energy, which is immense, to like push people that direction, to try to stir passion and commitment from people, right? So that's like a vision. It's a significant role that leaders play, right? Leaders in any organization in the church, part of the role that they have to do is to try to cast a vision of the future that makes the current scenario unsettling. Why would we stay here, right, if we could go there? Yeah? Okay, now I'm going to put the microphone down. Everybody can hear me if I talk like this? Yeah. Okay, so like in a really basic way, like the role of a leader is to say, I have an idea about somewhere where we could go. You know, like the best leader that we've ever seen in human history is Jesus. Jesus totally had an idea of there. Not just for like society in general. Jesus had a picture of what my life could be like if I was willing to get unsettled with what here is. He said, Seth, your life here is like nothing in comparison to what your life could be like here in the kingdom, right? That's compelling and motivating. It makes me want to go there, right? Here's one of the challenges around that many churches face that have significant visionary leaders like Greg. And I face it in my own life as I try to picture like a vision for the future. Lots of us can have a picture for what the future could look like, but sometimes what we lack is like a plan, right? Every great vision has to have a plan. After a while, actually, you'll get tired of hearing grand visions. Ever met like a grand visionary who never has a plan? And you're like, you maybe need to get out of like some graph paper and start working on a chart, man. We don't need any more vision, right? So part of what the leadership at Woodland Hills was working on before I got here was like for a long time we've been getting like an immense and like white hot vision that's like stirred people, right? But what we've also sometimes struggled with is like a plan for like someone says, okay, Greg, we have this vision for like radical community, like be in each other's lives, right? And then lots of people said, awesome. Where do I go, right? Tell me what the plan is. And so in a pretty significant way, the leadership of Woodland before I got here worked out what the plan is. And so that little donut that you have right there is like the Woodland Hills plan. It's the strategy. How are we going to help people move into this radical vision? Just a quick show of hands. How many of you guys have participated in some way or are currently active in Sojourners? Hold your hand up if that's you. Okay, so a handful of us. Great. I mean, the part of the vision of Woodland Hills is actually a bunch of those things that you just read in the calling and values. That stuff is hard. Am I right? That stuff takes time. That stuff takes relationships for that stuff to really happen. It takes the Spirit. What it takes is a pretty significant focus that vision is that you share that vision and are willing to sacrifice for it, right? We certainly hope that people catch the vision of Woodland and the vision of the kingdom and are like ready to reorient their lives and like go full out. Does everybody start there? No, right? We can't ask people on their first visit here to like radically immerse themselves in the kingdom. It's not appropriate, right? It's sort of like asking someone to marry you on a first date, or even worse, like over a Facebook message, right? It's wildly inappropriate. People are like, I don't even know you, right? And yet I think sometimes churches can do this. We expect people to like instantly be disciples when like we haven't helped them take an appropriate, like maybe we should talk on the phone before we get married, right? And then maybe after a few phone calls we could meet up in the afternoon, so it's a low commitment level, right? So what you have here is like a plan at Woodland for how we can help take people, because I think that we totally want to do this. I want to take people who are currently outside of God's love and outside of the kingdom of God. Not outside of God's love in the fact that He doesn't love them, but outside of it in the fact that they're not connected to the Father. You know, like reconciliation is a big word around here. It's a meaningful word, and it needs to be. There's a lot of division in our society that needs to get broken down, and there's a large division in our world between the Father and His children that needs to get tidied up, and God gives a significant responsibility to the church to play a role like that. But we won't be able to just ask people like radically enter the kingdom of God on day one. It's up to us to have a little bit of a plan for that, right? So what you have here is like a 3-part plan. Let me just real briefly explain it to you. One of them, Inspire, is it's number 1. It's the starting point. The most clear explanation I have of this is like it's the weekend service, okay? Because mostly everybody who comes to Woodland Hills for the first time and says, I wonder what this church is all about, almost all of them come to the weekend service. That's the primary spot that guests and visitors come. So it makes sense that at the weekend service should be a spot that we pay attention. Like, let's keep our eyes out for new people. Let's try not to do anything off-putting at the weekend service that's not necessary. Like I said, we're going to preach about loving your enemies. If that's off-putting, you won't like it here. You should go find another vision and another plan. But like, you won't want this one. What we're trying to do at the weekend service is inspire people. No one is going to get deeply discipled by coming Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, right? I mean, discipleship happens through relationships, mentoring, training, learning, experience, growing. However, one thing that the weekend service has been doing for 24 years, and I want it to happen for like 240 more, is inspiring this radical vision of the kingdom in people. You know, Greg's not going to be with us forever. As much as his battery is on full charge, there's no Methuselah in it. He's not going to be like hundreds of years old. It's like that vision that he's laying down, we're going to like, as a church community, we're going to continue taking that vision and like communicating this radical kingdom, this Jesus-looking God and a Jesus-looking church, and hoping people want their life to look like Jesus. We're trying to inspire that on the weekend services, and what we're trying to do, and hopefully you hear us doing it, is we're trying to ask everybody to take the next step. You can see it's at the center of the circle. I just have a full commitment that like no one transforms overnight. I don't. My whole thing is like, I'm not gonna get from here to there overnight. And in a lot of ways, I sure wish I was making more progress than I am. But what I can do is I can just take the next step. Like, okay, God, what's the next thing that you can challenge me in? If someone's only coming to the weekend service and that's it, I don't want to slam them for that and go like, oh, all you are is a church attender. They're like, no. They've taken a step, that's what they're doing. How can we as a church community go like, hey, what's your next step? This happens for adults, I think it happens for kiddos. It's like a mentality that a church can get of like, let's help guide and disciple people by encouraging everyone like, what's the next thing that God's calling them to do? So after Inspire, part of taking the next step means getting involved, and there's a team of leaders that work together around an involved strategy. The two core questions there: no one who comes to the weekend service will stick around very long if they can't find one of these two things: meaningful relationships and meaningful responsibility. And the hard part is, we can't tell people what meaningful is. Everybody decides for themselves if a relationship is meaningful or if a responsibility is meaningful. But it's our job to try to help people find those kinds of places. I totally hope as new people are volunteering in kids, especially if they're newer to the church, you guys can play a role in helping people feel like they have a meaningful relationship and some meaningful responsibility within Woodland Hills. Now, that's not like the end of the radical kingdom. Like, just because people are coming to the weekend service and let's say they get involved in a small group, that's not the end zone for this church. You know, for lots of other churches, that's totally fine. Like, great, weekend service, small group, done. You're totally done. And what we would say is like, God has more. For sure, God has more. For us, there's another category that I think sets us, it's one of the reasons why I love working here, and that's Sojourners is one of the environments under the umbrella around here that we call Immerse. I don't know if you noticed this, but all three of those words start with the letter I, because just like a good sermon, a good strategy needs to be like memorable, right? So it's inspire, involve, immerse, and what we're asking people to do is like, what's the next step, you know? And that's not just for other people, that's for you. Maybe you've been around Woodland Hills for 24 years. I would say congratulations on 24 years. What's the next step for you? Because the sign of a great church is when everyone's committed to growing. It's something that like Jesus deeply challenged people in. In fact, it's one of the characteristics that the Pharisees, that set them apart from the people who Jesus was more invigorated to have interaction with, is in a very significant way, they decided to stop learning. And there's not much you can do with someone who says, I don't want to learn anymore. And part of what we're trying to do around Woodland is to say everybody should be learning and everybody should be growing. None of us have arrived there because God has a vision of your life that you're not going to fully get there until you're there, you know? However, that future picture of the kingdom of heaven, Jesus has said it's totally available to you right now. You don't have to wait to participate in the kingdom. It's like, in right now, in every moment of every day, the Spirit wants to help you take the next step. And it's not just you. There's no young person that's too young to not be able to experience God's presence, to not start thinking about what discipleship looks like for them, to start learning what the next step is. And you guys play a significant role in helping that. The last thing I'm going to finish with, and the second half of this is just FYI. If you wonder, like, what is Seth doing to the weekend service? I hate it. This is the explanation of all the things that you hate, okay? And maybe there's a couple things in there that will help nudge it. If you love it, here's some of the things that we're thinking about as we're putting together the weekend services as a team. Just thought, as people who are contributing to what we work on the weekend, in full disclosure, I think it's helpful for you guys to know what are some of the, what I would say, the crafting questions. You know, what's the style of our weekend service? You've noticed that the style of our weekend service has changed, right? So I just thought, like, I'm going to put kind of into words. One of the things that happened when I first got here is there had been a team of people, a team of staff people and volunteers between our worship ministry and our younger generation ministry that said, hey, our weekend services need to change because there was two facts that we learned. For a decade, we as a church have been getting older and smaller. That's not there for us. Like, there isn't, like, continuing to get older and smaller. Like, we just believe, like, God has a fresh vision for what's happening around Woodland. And we needed to do some work on the weekend services to start to turn a corner. And like Greg said today, The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping that something changes, right? So if we wanted to change, we had to change. And so these are some of the ideas that this group, between the younger people and the worship ministry, some ideas about how we can make some adjustments to the style of the weekend service without changing the vision of our church, without changing the theology of where we're going or the values of this organization. Just some style changes to make it feel a little bit different, okay? Last thing I want to say. One of the reasons why your guys' work is so important, I didn't get a picture of the Jesus-looking God until I was 35 years old, had been through 4 years and $50,000 of student loan debt, had been leading and teaching people the Bible for 15 years. One of the things that I look back and just say, like, God, why couldn't I have gotten this picture earlier? My life could have been more fruitful. I feel like I could have had a greater effect on people. I'm certainly glad that I got it when I got it. Part of what you guys get to do is you guys get to raise up a generation of young people that don't have to grow up with a different picture of God. They can get the picture of God right from the get-go and produce more fruit, move further as disciples of Christ, and not have to undo these terrible pictures of God that so many people get. You know, like we sang the song this morning. Like, I've heard thousands of stories about what everyone out there thinks that God is like, and I just, you know, part of my commitment is I just can't stand it anymore. You know, like I want our young people and I want our old people to get a picture of a Jesus-looking God that transforms their interaction with God and the way that they see other people. You guys get to do that with fresh minds and fresh hearts. It's hard to teach old people like me new things. Every once in a while, we can learn something new. These young people are like, their picture of God is being formed fresh by your work, and I can't tell you from the leadership of our church how grateful we are for the way that you invest in that, and to imagine the potential lives that get impacted by these guys and what you're investing in them. So on our whole church's behalf, I just want to say, you guys that Mexican food was delicious. It's a small thing to say thank you for the amount that you guys give. We couldn't lay out a meal that was meaningful enough to say thank you the way that we need to, and to say how meaningful that your work really is and how much we're grateful for it. Can I say a prayer of blessing, and then maybe I'll get us out 1 minute early? Yeah, you're a good Father. That's who you are. And we are loved by you. That's who we are. Lord, I pray for this group of leaders who will cast a vision and shepherd and disciple the children that are part of this church, and will be able to instill in them early on that you are not a God that's angry. You are not a God of judgment. You're a God of mercy. You're a good Father to us. You give good things to us. And we're not creatures of wrath. We're not objects of your anger. We're loved by you. That's who we are. Pray that this group of people would be invigorated by sharing that. I pray that you would fill them with your Spirit. I pray in the moments that are hard when they want to quit, because those moments totally come. And God, you know it. Like Jesus, you were in the garden and you came close to quitting. You understand what it's like to come to the end of yourself and just say, I can't do this anymore. I pray when these guys get to those moments that you would give them a fresh vision, fill them with your Spirit to see the importance of this work. God, I imagine a future in 20 years when all the kids that are part of Heroes Gate right now are living out their calling, and some of them are missionaries, and some of them are pastors, and some of them are business leaders and parents, and the effect that their lives will have, they'll look back and say, man, I'm so thankful for this leader who gave me a picture of God that would stick with me through life, and I didn't have to go through a crisis of faith. Lord, I pray that you would keep fueling and caring for this ministry. It's because it's to your glory, it's to your honor. We remind ourselves that you have a vision for us, for this planet, for the whole universe. We want to be committed to that one and to do everything we can to be fully available to your kingdom here on earth in this moment in our lives. In your name we pray. Amen. Hey, thanks so much for giving me some time. It's been a honor.